Michaela Vernava joined by Dave Dombrowski, Red Sox president of baseball operations at the Play It Forward Summit at Boston University. Dave, some sort of heavy and serious topics touched on today, but first, the panel you were on started with leadership and resilience, bouncing back from a loss. And compared to the other sports, given so many games you play in baseball, you really emphasize the importance of leadership and inside the clubhouse, being able to come back, not getting down. I imagine Big Papi was probably that presence in the clubhouse. Who is it now on this year's Red Sox team?
Well, Big Papi definitely was a leader and had a lot of that capability, but I think also a guy like Dustin Pedroia has been part of that also for years. And we have others in the clubhouse. I think a lot of times when you have young players that all of a sudden when a Big Papi leaves, and all of a sudden you'll see a Jackie Bradley Jr. or a Mookie Betts. Of course, Hanley Ramirez of a more veteran capabilities, and some of the pitchers themselves. So I think that they all grab that and sort of lead by example. And now that Big Papi's here, of course, a void, you never really replace a guy like that. But I think we have guys that are capable of doing so.
Is there something about Big Papi's energy and mentality that is still present in the clubhouse, even though he isn't there?
Well, I think he led these guys for a long time period, so they were in a position where for years, having him around, they saw how it was to prepare for games, how to bounce back from losses, how to be in a position where you celebrate your teammates together, and just how to play the game day in and day out. So I think that presence is always there, as I'm sure it was passed on to Big Papi by some of the longtime guys with dealing with a guy like Pedro Martinez. So that type of presence is there, but I think our players are also smart enough and have learned from that they're in a position that they know, well, Big Papi's not walking in the door anymore, so we need to take those steps and lead our younger players along those same lines, and I think that is pretty much the chain and how it works.
Also on today's panel with you was Patriots safety Devin McCourty, who talked about athletes, being an athlete is just their job. They're also people who have feelings and opinions, and I'm curious what you see in your Red Sox team and the way that they're able to make an impact off the field.
Well, I think there's different ways that that's expressed. I mean, first and foremost, everybody has their own perspective and individual thoughts on every topic. And I think that that's important that you let people have those thoughts. We're not trying to influence individuals to think a certain way on certain topics. You can present, and it's up to them to make those decisions. But I think that, and another fact, we're very involved in the community. We do a lot of different things all the time. It's something that's emphasized from ownership on through with the Red Sox organization. And our players are very active and do that. So we're really involved in every walk of life that they possibly can be. And it's not only on the field that's important for the Red Sox organization and how they present themselves in play, but what we do off the field as Red Sox players and members of the organization.
Now, the issue of Colin Kaepernick not yet being signed by an NFL team came up, and you brought up Chris Sale's reputation before you brought him to Boston. What was it that you heard about Sale that was different from public perception? And this is a two-part question. What have you seen from him and his character since he's been here in Boston?
Well, I think, first of all, I just use Chris as an example of a situation because you hear things as in the industry, and sometimes from the opposite perspective, you see a guy like that on the mound. He's tough as nails. As a opponent, you're not always loving that type of person against you. And then when you read some of the things that took place and it's presented in certain fashions, I've learned throughout the years it's very important to be in a position that you delve into the situations of what took place. And basically anybody I spoke to about Chris Sale, with people that I respect in the game, people with the White Sox organization, everybody absolutely thinks the world of him as a teammate, as a competitor, what he brings to an organization. He's the type of competitor that you want to have on your side. And since he's been with our organization, you couldn't think of a guy that's a more tremendous person, a family-oriented person that knows what teamwork and winning is all about. And then when he takes the mound, you're glad he's on your side because he's not only the one of the most talented, he's the most competitive guys out there.
Absolutely. And another topic that was heavily discussed today involved racial, social issues. And I was surprised to hear Devin McCourty and Brian Scalabrine both say that colorblindness does exist in sports. To what extent do you see that with the Red Sox? Does that exist, and maybe what did they mean by that?
Well, I thought that they had really talked about how they thought that it didn't always exist at times. But I think from our perspective, I'm in a situation, we're colorblind and putting together a team. We want the most talented individuals that we possibly can that are also good teammates. I mean, there's a lot that are winning type of players. So that's very important for it. Our players get along great. I think it's a situation when you put together a Major League Baseball team, you're not really worried about the type of race or religion that individuals are or their background is. You want to try to put people together that are winning type of players. And I think that that's how our clubhouse exists. And again, I'm not so naive to think that racism doesn't exist in today's society somewhere out there. But I think we're in a situation with the organization that that's not at all tolerated within our organization, in the clubhouse, outside the clubhouse, by the fans at the ballpark if it was taken out, and that's something very important to us.
And lastly, on gender, you said that the best managers are someone who is respected by their teams. How could, hypothetically, a woman be able to gain the respect of this year's Red Sox team? Do you think that would be possible?
Well, that's a tough question because you say this year's Red Sox. I think it's a situation more that it's the respect that they earn from their knowledge and how they handle themselves and how they relate to players. So when you say, okay, who would be this for this year, I can't really speak to that. That's a difficult situation to just take somebody in here. But I think really what ends up happening is that your knowledge of the game and how you communicate it and how you present that to the players is extremely important, and that's really what earns the respect of the clubhouse. And so it's not only from a woman's perspective, it's from a male's perspective too, because you could come in there and if you don't have those same things that the players respect the person, it would be very difficult for that type of individual to be a leader of the clubhouse.
Dave, thanks for talking with us today and elaborating on a lot of these topics. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.